He's got a voice like solid gold and a twinkle in his eye. And keeping that eye firmly placed on our parliamentarian buddies is Tony Amos. We welcome Tony and the weekly political roundup.
Tony Amos.
Oh, a little bit of song from Jared. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Tony, it's always good to see you every week, right through the summer, the winter, the autumn and the spring. It's Tony Amos talking about politics. Good on you, Tony.
Yes, Jared, our weekly look at the sooks and the crooks, those oddballs and misfits, the rooters and looters of public office we proudly call our politicians.
And what rooting and looting has been taking place this week, Tony?
Well, plenty, actually. There's always an abundance, Jared. It's called Parliament, and that's where it happens. But before we go there, we don't often talk about sport. Occasionally we do. But the Auckland Blues, Jared, the Auckland Blues, because they have a new owner. Murray Bolton and his mates now own the Auckland Blues, so that's a good thing to start with. But they haven't had a good season, have they?
No, well, better than the last one, though.
Hey, yeah, but that's like saying 10 punches to the head's better than 12. You know, it's still they still lost, Jared. And even the white... They brought the white knight in. He couldn't save them either. Not so far anyway, but I think it's in the name.
Yes,
you know, they are blues. In fact, the biggest part of the word blues is lose.
Yes.
And that's part of it.
Well, it rhymes with lose,
it's
doesn't
blues, lose. You know, it's outrageous. Anyway, my great suggestion is they change their name. They're now known as the Bewinners. Anyway, back to politics. Back to politics here. And of course, who's been in the news this week? Well, the Minister of Social Welfare has, amongst others. Yes, Paula Bennett. Paula Bennett's been in there because she's putting the squeeze on beneficiaries. You know, savings is always good, but getting there, the way they're getting there is totally wrong, of course. And this threat to halve benefits to people who don't comply with all their silly rules is just wrong because the children suffer. And when this minister was asked about, you know, children suffering when their parents do that because they don't comply, she said, well, her response was, well, their parents will learn to comply. Totally unreasonable. Anyway, because she's putting the squeeze on them, we now know her as... I mean, we've already got Crusher Collins, because Collins was going to crush cars, never did. But that's her name now, Crusher Collins. So now we've got this woman who runs social welfare as the minister, putting the squeeze on beneficiaries. She's known as Squasher Bennett. That's right, so we've got Crusher Collins and Squasher Bennett. And interesting about Minister Bennett, because someone asked her too about the Breakfast in Schools program. And she wasn't really supportive of it, but she did concede that breakfast is a very important meal and said, in fact, in her personal regime, it's the 7th most important meal of the day. Bit of bad luck in Wellington last week, Jared.
Yes, there was, wasn't there?
Shake, rattle, a bit of an earthquake, but an unsuccessful earthquake.
Yeah.
Didn't work. Parliament's still there. They thought a nasty crack would open up and swallow Parliament.
Didn't happen, Tony.
Not talking about Squasher Bennett. No, anyway, we have a new heir to the throne.
We have, haven't we?
We have a new heir to the throne.
I know it was last week, Tony, but I think it still bears talking about.
It's big news. It's big news in the Commonwealth. Once upon a time it was the Empire. Now it's the Commonwealth, Jared. The new child's great-grandmother, of course, is still the Queen of New Zealand. I mean, she's the Queen of England too, but she's the Queen of New Zealand. So this new bonny boy is third in line to the throne to be the King of New Zealand, if you like. And I've heard, Jared, about his name.
Oh, have you?
He's going to be named after his mother's favourite American singer. Oh. It's going to be called Prince. On a more serious note, Jared, servicemen, Navy personnel who were dispatched by the government in 1973 to Mururoa Atoll to observe the French nuclear testing. Some of those sailors, of course, many of them, most of them, some would say, have been afflicted with cancer and other things, and their children and their grandchildren as well. And it's not being addressed correctly by our government. Now, Junior Minister Michael Woodhouse, whoever he is, I mean, he's the Minister of Veteran Affairs, but he's not. And he's asking them for proof that the radiation has given them cancer. Now, this guy is a lightweight loser, needs to be thrown out of cabinet, and the best thing John Key could do is to get a Minister of Veteran Affairs who actually is concerned about veterans, because the current minister is a spoofer.
And speaking of all those little princes down at Wellington, our List MP friends.
And there's always a good story about a List MP. This particular story is about a woman List MP who went on a cruise.
Ooh, very nice.
And we know about it because her friend found her diary and has given us readings from the diary. Anyway, there was the diary. The first day on the cruise, and her friend read the diary, and it said, "Dear diary, today is day one of the cruise. Lovely occasion. We all met in the lounge room this afternoon and had drinks, and I met the captain, a charming man." That was day one. Day two, dear diary, a lovely day at sea on the ship. It's a beautiful ocean, it's a beautiful ship. Met lots of nice people, went and had drinks again, pre-dinner drinks, met the captain who had a bit of a chat with me. He is a very charming fellow. Day three, dear diary, lovely day today. We're in port, had a game of tennis because the ship's stable today, played tennis, had a lovely lunch, went for a shore walk, had dinner at the captain's table. By Jobs, he's a charming man. He invited me back to his cabin for a drink, and I had to explain to him, no, I'm a married woman, but thank you all the same. And then in brackets, but he is a very charming man. Dear diary, last night I was invited to the captain's stateroom for a drink. We had a lovely drink. He tried to get a little amorous with me, but I explained to him I was a married woman and things would have to stay as they were. Day five, dear diary, was invited to the captain's stateroom for dinner and drinks. Had lots of drinks, had a beautiful meal, and the captain really, really encouraged me and wanted me to stay the night. I reminded the captain again, I am a married woman, and in fact, I am a list MP. The captain became very persuasive and in the end said to me, if I didn't stay the night with him, he would sink the ship. Dear diary, last night I saved 1,600 lives. Twice. That's politics. See you next week.